Dads of Reddit, what is your best don't tell your mother moment with your kid? My kid rats me out every dang time I give her sugar. Lollipop at the store? First thing she says when we get home. Snitch. I also ratted out my parents as a kid. One time we bought a pizza and were just about to eat it until we found out we were going to be having company. My dad told me not to tell them we had pizza. The first thing I said when they walked in was, "We don't have pizza." Oh, I got this. My daughter and I are on a 10-day road trip through the American South. An Airbnb here, a campground there and one state park right outside of Jackson, Mississippi. We'd just come from New Orleans where, among other things, we had taken a swamp tour where we were within spitting distance of some massive alligators. After 6 or so hours of driving, we decided to pitch a tent for the night by a river. At the time, my daughter was 8 years old and couldn't get enough swimming. The park ranger was making his rounds, so we asked him if it was cool to go swimming in the river, and he recommends a spot only a few minutes walk from where we were camped. So we do just that. A couple of hours of splashing around and having fun and such, and we go roast our hot dogs and retire, at which point we are treated to the most glorious lightning storm I've ever seen. The next morning, we wake up and while we're packing up camp, 2 local ladies start chatting us up and they happen to mention the family of alligators they had seen swimming in the river. Horrified, I asked where. They pointed right to where we were swimming. I asked if they had seen them the day before and they said yes, same spot. I literally looked at my daughter and said, "Mommy is never to hear of this. That was such a great trip for so many other reasons, but that story sticks out." Haven't done this with my kids yet, but I remember one from my childhood. My mom did not allow us to have video game consoles in the house. Yes, we were deprived children. My brother and I shared a room. He won a TV at a school party and one day I bought an N64 and several games at a garage sale. We then snuck these items into our house and set them up in our closet. We'd been playing Mario Kart, GoldenEye, and Super Smash Bros. For a couple days when my dad walked in our room and we weren't fast enough to dump the pile of clothes over things to keep them hidden. There was an awkward silence, then the following conversation happened. "Dad, is that a Nintendo?" Us, "Yes." "Dad, does your mom know you have this?" Us, "Probably not." "Dad, do you have another controller?" He played with us for a while, told us not to tell mom, and to this day we've all kept our secret. Super similar story with my dad. My parents have been divorced all my life. Growing up they lived 20 minutes away from each other and were on good terms. On Wednesdays at 6 PM my dad would pick us up from our mom's house to spend the night at his. One night my mom had already left to go out for the night. When my dad arrived at mom's, it was just me and my brother there. He proceeded to sit on the floor with us and play Mario Golf on the GameCube even though it wasn't his house. He did this a few more times afterwards. Every time he picked Waluigi, haha. I told my mom about this years later. She was very happy to hear he spent that time with us. Couple months ago Smash Ultimate came out and I was on the phone with my dad about it. He said there's a lot of characters, but I don't think Waluigi made it. I was in the car with my dad one winter when he pulls into an empty car park and starts pulling mad skids on the ice. When I questioned WTF he was doing, the look on his face made it pretty clear he forgot I was in the back of the car. It made me wonder what other random shit he gets up to when he's on his own. Best driving lesson I've ever got was my old man taking me to an unplowed parking lot and telling me to spin out until I figured out how to control it. I can't count the number of times I've saved myself by using what I learned those days. Also, braking in the snow was a huge learning curve at 16. When I was growing up, my dad was a private pilot, but former military pilot with many thousands of hours, and would sometimes take me along. One day, mid-flight, the engine just quit and we found ourselves at 5,000 feet and steadily descending in a glide over some pretty forested land. Turns out he had forgotten to switch fuel tanks mid-flight. There were 3 in the plane and you're supposed to switch between them as you fly to ensure a constant supply of fuel and proper balancing. Luckily he diagnosed the issue and restarted the engine with a couple thousand feet to spare, and we were fine. After he got sorted and chilled out a bit, he clicked on the intercom and said, "You're not gonna tell your mom about that, are you?" I was about 13 years old. I'm in my 40s now, and she still doesn't know. She was paranoid about us kids flying with him and that would have been the end of it. He's in his 70s and still flying. Swears that's the only time he's ever had a brain fart like that while flying. I don't know if I believe him. I'm not a dad, but this is a story about what my dad did for me. It was the night the movie 8 Below was released. You know, the one with Paul Walker and all those huskies? I was in my I love princesses, ponies and puppies stage of life and really wanted to watch it, but the only show was at midnight. I begged my mom and dad, but mom was a firm no because it would be way past my bedtime. So, I went to bed sulking and crying. Then about half an hour before the movie, I hear my bedroom door creak open and see my dad sneak in. He walks over to me in bed and says, "Go get ready, we've got to leave in 5 minutes if we want to make it in time." We then snuck out of the house and got to the cinemas so fast that we managed to watch the trailers too. I remember buying a large popcorn and being mad at my dad for finishing it before the movie even began, but I look back on it now and laugh at how apologetic he was. On the drive home, he said we had to make sure we didn't make any noise so as to not wake mom up. Made me promise and everything. But when we got home, we found mom waiting on the couch with her arms crossed. And pissed off. She was too tired to get mad and just told us to take her with us next time. I've got a few more stories about my dad doing stuff like this with me, but this is probably my favorite. My old man passed away a few years after this secret movie night and I miss him terribly, but I like to remember all the good times we had. Thanks for the question, OP. When I was underage, my dad would let me have a drink every once in a while. The first time he had asked me to make him a screwdriver. I said sure, then jokingly said, "Only if I get one too." He was like, whatever. You're 18 and not going anywhere tonight. Don't tell your mom." When he passed away I was telling that story. As it turns out, mom knew the whole time. She didn't care because we were bonding. My dad. I was 19, still living at home. Latest I had ever come home was maybe 1 in the morning. One particular evening I went out with some friends and the night went kind of crazy. Long story that I'll skip. Anyway, I came home drunk off my ass at like 6 AM. I tried sneaking in the door, but as soon as I opened it both parents were in my face giving me the 3rd degree. I stumbled past them muttering some excuses and passed out in bed in my room. I thought I was in the clear. A few hours later my mom busts into my room, raging at me, telling me to get my ass up and start on some yard work because my father is furious, and how he's going to let me have it. So I'm in the front yard with my first ever true hangover, raking or shoveling or some shit. My dad's got a shop in the back. I see the door open. I see him come out. Watch him walk around the house from the backyard to the front, through the big windows in the garage. I'm like, here it comes. I'm in deep shit. Dread filling my entire being. My dad walks around the corner of the garage, looks at me for a long moment. I'm ready to get my ass chewed out. Dear God, just get on with it. I know I fucked up. Here it comes. He laughs, says, "Your mom is so mad at you," and walks into the house. Best dad ever. My dad gave in and let me rent South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut. Told me not to tell my mom. Then my mom let me rent it again a few weeks later and told me not to tell my dad. I never told either of them I had already seen it in the theater. All 3 of you were deceptive. Fantastic. No one can claim the higher ground if you decide to come clean. Stop. You have been visited by the magical driving doggo. You will be granted great driving skills and much fortune. But only if you like the video and subscribe to Best Questions. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to Best Questions.